The royal cruiser Silver Sky sailed through the deep stretch of the Androm Reach, its polished hull shining under the faint light of nearby stars. Inside, corridors glowed with soft gold and servants moved quietly, carrying trays and messages to different chambers. The air smelled faintly of blossoms from the royal gardens, a luxury scent carried across worlds. Princess Alira walked slowly along the main observation deck, her silver gown catching light from the stars outside. She often came here when she wished to think. As she looked through the transparent walls of the deck, space seemed endless. She had seen many worlds, but none gave her peace like this, watching the stars silent and far away. This journey was not a peaceful one. She had been sent by her father, the king of Velis Prime, to negotiate with the leaders of the Orion Belt. The empire was large, but alliances were fragile. Rumors spoke of unrest in the border systems and whispers of new raiders who attacked trade ships without mercy. The princess had been raised with grace and learning, but she knew very little of danger. A soft chime came from the ship's console. Commander Dalen entered the deck and bowed slightly. "Your Highness," he said, "we are crossing the outer line of the Reach. Estimated time to the belt is 9 hours. "Thank you, Commander," she said gently. "Any signs of pursuit?" "None so far. But we are watching the scanners closely." She nodded and gave him a small smile. "You always do." The commander smiled back, proud yet uneasy. He had served the royal family for years and felt a quiet protectiveness toward the young princess. He noticed how calm she seemed, though the mission was dangerous. She looked at the stars as if nothing could harm her. Hours passed in quiet. The ship's engines hummed softly and the crew worked in rhythm. The princess read from her datapad, learning the customs of the Orion leaders she was about to meet. Her servant Mira brought her warm tea and spoke softly about home. Then the silence ended. A sudden tremor shook the silver sky. The lights flickered. A warning siren began to cry through the corridors. Alira looked up, startled. Commander Dalen's voice echoed over the comm. "All crew to battle stations. Unknown vessels approaching." "This is not a drill." The princess stood, her heart racing. "What is happening?" she asked Mira, who was pale with fear. "I do not know, Your Highness," she whispered. "Stay here. I will call for the guards." But before Mira could move, the deck shuddered again. The sound of explosions came from somewhere deep below. The ship lurched, and Alira had to hold onto the rail to keep from falling. The doors slid open, and Commander Dalen entered, his uniform marked with smoke. "Your Highness, we are under attack. Raiders. They came out of the dust field, 3 ships. They have advanced cloaking. We could not detect them in time." Alira's voice trembled. "Can we fight them off?" "We are trying," he said firmly, "but their weapons are strong. We need to get you to an escape pod." She looked at him with wide eyes. "And the crew?" "They will hold them off," he said. "Please, Princess. There is no time." He led her down the corridor where guards and crew rushed by, their faces tight with fear and focus. The walls shook again. Sparks flew from a ceiling panel. Through a window, Alira saw the pirate ships, black, sharp-edged vessels firing beams of red light. The silver sky tried to turn, but one wing was already burning. Alira stumbled as the floor tilted. She could hear the muffled cries of the crew and the deep roar of explosions. The smell of smoke filled the air. They reached the escape bay. Dalen pressed his hand against a control panel, opening one of the pods. "Get in," he ordered. Alira hesitated. "What about you?" "I will follow in the next one," he said quickly. "Now please, Your Highness." She stepped into the small pod. The walls glowed faint blue and a single chair waited at the center. Dalen reached in to fasten her belt, but before he could, a blast shook the deck again. The commander fell back, hitting the wall. The door to the bay half-closed, jamming with smoke. "Commander!" Alira cried. He tried to rise but could barely move. "Launch!" he shouted. "Now!" Tears filled her eyes. She pressed the release button and the door sealed shut. A deep sound filled the pod as the launch system engaged. Through the small window, she saw the silver sky fading behind her, pieces breaking away. The stars blurred as the pod shot into open space. Alira felt the pull of acceleration, then weightlessness. Her hands trembled as she looked through the window. The once grand ship was now a bright streak of flame. She could see escape pods scattering like silver sparks. The pirates circled, firing at anything that moved. Her pod systems crackled with noise. "Power level critical," said a mechanical voice. "Atmospheric entry detected." She looked ahead. A planet filled the view, Blue oceans, green lands, and white clouds swirling across it. She had never seen such a world. It looked peaceful, untouched, almost alive. The pod entered its atmosphere, shaking violently. Fire flared around it. Alira closed her eyes and whispered a quiet prayer to the stars. The heat grew unbearable. The pod spun and fell faster. Alira's vision blurred. She tried to hold the controls, but everything around her was burning light and noise. She heard the computer speak one last line. Impact in 20 seconds. Then darkness. When Alira opened her eyes again, she saw faint light through the cracked window of her pod. Her head ached and her breath came slow. The pod had stopped moving. She was alive. She tried to move, but pain shot through her shoulder. Still, she pressed the door release. The hatch opened with a soft hiss and cool air rushed in. It smelled of earth and rain. She stepped out slowly and fell to her knees on soft grass. The world around her was bright with morning. Trees reached high above her, and strange birds sang in the distance. The sky was blue in a way she had never seen before. The colors were sharper, richer. Her world of glass and metal had never felt so far away. She looked back at the pod. Smoke rose from its side, but most of it was intact. She searched the horizon, but there was no sign of the silver sky or any other ship, only endless forest and hills. Her heart pounded as the truth came to her. She was alone on an unknown planet. Alira tried to gather her thoughts. She needed shelter, food, and a way to contact her people. She checked the pod's communication unit, but it was dead. She tried again and again, but no signal came. The power cell had burned out during re-entry. She sat beside the pod, hands trembling. The forest was silent now, and she could hear the beating of her own heart. She thought of her father, her home, and the crew who had served her so loyally. Were they alive? Had anyone else landed nearby? As she sat there, lost in thought, she heard a sound, a rustle from the trees. She turned quickly. Something moved between the shadows. She rose to her feet, backing against the pod. Her voice shook. "Who is there?" No answer came, only the sound of slow footsteps approaching. A figure stepped out from the trees. He wore rough clothing, a jacket patched with old fabric. His hair was dark and slightly unkempt. He held something in his hand that looked like a tool, not a weapon. His eyes met hers, calm but cautious. Alira froze. She had seen many kinds of beings in her travels, but none like this one. He looked familiar, like the old paintings from history books. His face had the shape she had seen in museum images of the first ones, the lost race who once ruled the stars. He looked at her wrecked pod, then back at her. His voice was quiet and steady. "You are hurt. Come with me." She stared at him, unable to speak. The words felt strange, almost forgotten, yet she understood them perfectly. She opened her mouth, but only a whisper came out. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head slightly. "My name is Rin," he said. "And you have fallen a very long way from home." The air was cool and carried the soft scent of earth after rain. Princess Alira followed Rin slowly through the forest, her steps unsteady but guided by his calm voice. He moved with quiet confidence, like someone who knew every tree and path by heart. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting golden patterns on the ground. Alira's thoughts were full of confusion and questions. Her last memory was of fire, falling through the sky, and the burning image of her ship breaking apart. Now she was walking through green woods beside a man who spoke a forgotten language. After some time, the trees began to thin, and the path opened to a small clearing. At its center stood a simple shelter made of metal and stone. It looked old but strong, built by hands that cared for detail more than beauty. Beside it, a small stream flowed gently, and a few solar panels glowed faintly in the sun. Rin gestured toward the shelter. "You can rest inside," he said. "You need food and water." Alira hesitated before entering. Inside, the space was neat and clean. There were strange machines along one wall and old devices she could not recognize. On a shelf, she saw a small box of glowing crystals and an old music device playing a soft tune. The melody was slow and warm, unlike any song she had ever heard. Rin handed her a small cup filled with clear water. "Drink this. You are dehydrated." She accepted it carefully and took a sip. The water was cold and pure. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft but sincere. He nodded once. "You are welcome." For a while, neither spoke. The quiet sound of the stream outside filled the air. Alira studied him, trying to understand who he was. His face was sun-touched, his eyes steady and kind. His clothes were rough and patched, but they looked comfortable and practical. Finally, she asked, "Where am I?" Rin sat down on a small stool near the wall. "You are on Earth," he said simply. The word made her heart skip a beat. "Earth?" she repeated softly. The name felt heavy, like an ancient memory. "That is not possible. Earth was destroyed long ago." Rin shook his head slowly. "Not destroyed, forgotten." Alira's eyes widened. "Forgotten? But the records say your kind vanished after the Great Collapse. No one has seen a human for centuries." Rin gave a small smile, faint and almost sad. "Then your records are wrong. Some of us survived. We stayed here when the rest of the stars moved on." She tried to take in his words. Her world's history told stories of humans, the first travelers, the builders of stargates, the dreamers who reached beyond galaxies. They were legends, spoken of with respect and mystery. But now one stood before her, alive and breathing. "You are human," she whispered, still unsure. "Yes," he said. "One of the last, maybe." She stared at him, unable to look away. The silence between them felt larger than space itself. Rin looked toward the window where sunlight danced across the forest. "You fell from the sky," he said. "Your pod left a trail of fire. I thought it was a meteor until I found the wreck." Alira looked down at her hands. "My ship was attacked. Raiders, they came from the dust field. I do not know if anyone else survived." He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stood and took a small metal plate from a shelf. He placed it on a table and pressed a button. It lit up with faint blue light, showing a map of the nearby area. "This is where you landed," he said, pointing at a glowing mark. "No signals have appeared since then. If others escaped, they did not come here." Alira nodded slowly. The truth settled in her chest like a stone. She might be the only survivor. Rin noticed her silence. "You can stay here until you recover," he said gently. "I have food and water. The forest is safe if you do not wander far." She looked at him. "Why are you helping me?" He met her eyes without hesitation. "Because you needed help. That is reason enough." His answer was simple, yet it carried a strength she could feel. She realized how strange it was. This man, living alone on a forgotten planet, still showing kindness without question. She stayed in the shelter for the next few days. Her wounds healed slowly, and Rin helped her rebuild strength. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried quiet wisdom. He showed her how to light a small cooking fire, and how to gather fruit from trees nearby. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, he would sit by the stream and watch the stars. Alira often joined him. The sky here was unlike any she had ever seen. Without city lights, the stars shone brighter, almost alive. One evening she asked, "Do you ever feel lonely here?" Rin smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But the stars keep me company. Each one carries a story. I like to think the old travelers are still watching from somewhere out there." Alira listened to his words and felt something stir in her heart. She had grown up surrounded by machines, palaces, and endless light, but she had never known such quiet peace. The next morning, Rin showed her something remarkable. He took her beyond the forest, across a wide field where tall grass swayed like waves. In the distance stood the remains of a city. Towers of metal and stone reached toward the sky, broken but proud. Vines crawled up their sides and birds built nests among the ruins. "This was once the city of Avonfall," Rin said. "Many people lived here before the collapse. They built ships that could cross stars. They dreamed of unity between worlds." Alira walked slowly among the ruins. The streets were cracked but still carried traces of patterns. She could almost imagine the sound of life that once filled them. "It is beautiful," she said quietly. Rin nodded. "Beauty remains even after the fall. That is what keeps me going." He led her to a building half buried in earth. Inside, he uncovered an old console. It hummed weakly when he pressed a button. "This is a data core," he explained. "It holds pieces of history, songs, stories, images." He handed her a small device connected to it. The screen flickered to life, showing faces of people, laughter, and scenes of a world before silence. Alira felt tears form in her eyes. "They were so full of life," she whispered. "Yes," Rin said. "We lost much, but not everything. Some things survive in memory." As days turned into weeks, Alira began to feel stronger. She helped Rin repair small machines and learned how to live in this quiet world. They spoke often now, about their worlds, their people, their hopes. One night as they sat by the stream, Alira asked, "If Earth still exists, why did no one return?" Rin looked at the stars for a long moment before answering. When the wars came, humanity broke apart. Many fled to other worlds seeking safety or power. They forgot this place, and maybe they were ashamed of what they had done. Alira's gaze softened. But you stayed, he smiled. Someone had to remember. A gentle silence followed. The stars above them shimmered like old memories. The next morning, Alira woke early and stepped outside. The air was cool and mist floated above the grass. She looked toward the forest and thought about her mission, her people, and the responsibility waiting beyond this quiet world. Rin joined her with a cup of warm tea. "You are thinking of leaving," he said quietly. She nodded. "I must try to contact my fleet. My people will be searching for me." He set the cup down and walked toward the wreck of her pod. Together they examined the damage. The communication unit was burned, but Rin studied it carefully. "Maybe we can repair it," he said. "I have old transmitters from before the collapse. They might work with this system." Hope returned to her eyes. "Can you really fix it?" Rin gave a small, confident smile. "We can try." They spent the day working together, gathering parts from his old devices and combining them with the pod's remains. Alira watched how he worked, patient, focused, and steady. His hands moved with quiet skill. When the sun set, the pod's console flickered weakly to life. "It is not ready yet," Rin said, "but soon it will be." Alira looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "You have done so much for me, Rin. I do not know how to thank you." He shook his head. "No thanks needed. Helping you reminds me that humanity still matters." As night fell, Alira stood outside and looked at the stars again. For the first time since the crash, she felt something like hope. The sky above Earth was full of light, and somewhere among those stars were her people waiting. She whispered softly, "They will come for me." Rin looked up beside her. "Then we must be ready," he said, "because when they do, the stars will remember Earth once more." The wind carried their words across the forest. The forgotten world was no longer silent. Somewhere deep in its soil, old machines stirred faintly, as if awakening from a long sleep. And in that quiet moment beneath the stars, a lost princess and the last son of Earth stood side by side, two souls from different worlds bound by the promise of light in the endless dark. Morning light spilled through the trees, soft and golden. Birds sang somewhere high in the branches, and the cool wind carried the scent of leaves and wet earth. Princess Alira had been on Earth for more than 2 weeks now, though time seemed to move differently here. Every sunrise brought calmness she had never known in the busy halls of her homeworld. Rin had been working since dawn. He moved around the clearing near the pod, connecting wires and checking power cells. The broken communication unit lay open beside him. Alira sat nearby, handing him tools as he asked for them. "Will it work?" she asked hopefully. "Maybe," Rin said without looking up. "The old circuits are damaged, but the base system is still alive. If I can connect it to one of my transmitters, we might send a short signal." Alira leaned forward, curious. "You said your transmitters are old. How old are they?" He smiled faintly. "Older than I am. They were built before the collapse, when Earth still spoke to the stars." The princess watched him with quiet admiration. His hands were steady, his focus sharp. He had lived alone for years, yet he carried himself with quiet strength and patience. She wondered how many days he had spent repairing machines that no one else would ever see. When he finished connecting the wires, he tested the power. The small screen glowed weakly, showing faint symbols. Alira's heart leaped. "It is working," she said. Rin nodded. "Almost. We will try to boost the signal tomorrow. It needs to reach beyond the atmosphere." Alira smiled. "Then my people might find me." "Perhaps," Rin said softly. "But even if they do, remember that space listens slowly. It might take time." She nodded. Deep inside, she felt both hope and worry. Hope that her people would come. Worry that once they did, this quiet peace might end. After a short rest, Rin offered to show her more of Earth. They walked through the forest, crossing the small stream and following a trail that led uphill. The trees grew taller and older as they climbed. When they reached the top, Alira gasped softly. Below them stretched a wide valley filled with broken towers, roads, and bridges. Nature had covered most of it with green. From above, it looked like a sleeping city wrapped in vines. "This was the capital once," Rin said quietly. "It was called Solon City. My ancestors built it when Earth was still the heart of the star network." Alira looked in awe. "So many towers, so many homes." "Yes," he said. People came from all across the system. They dreamed of unity. But dreams fade when pride grows too strong. He began walking down toward the ruins. Alira followed, stepping carefully over fallen stones. The streets were cracked and filled with plants, but traces of design still remained. Symbols carved into walls, faded murals, broken lights that once glowed at night. They stopped at a wide plaza where a statue stood half covered in moss. It showed a woman holding a sphere of light. Her expression was calm and proud. "Who is she?" Alira asked. Rin brushed some moss from the base of the statue. Her name was Leona. She led the first journey beyond this world. She believed humanity should share its knowledge with others, not conquer them. Alira traced the carvings gently. She must have been a great leader. She was, Rin said. But not everyone agreed with her vision. When the wars began, many turned against her teachings. The unity she built was lost. They stood in silence for a while, surrounded by the whisper of wind. Alira finally spoke. "In my time, many believe humans were only myths, yet everything here feels alive, as if waiting to be remembered." Rin smiled faintly. "That is because stories never truly die. They only wait for someone to listen again." As they continued through the city, Rin showed her an underground chamber hidden beneath a building. Inside were machines still humming faintly after all these centuries. Lights flickered across old panels. "What is this place?" Alira asked in wonder. "This was a data vault," he explained. "It stored knowledge about Earth's people and their discoveries. I come here sometimes to learn. Some files are damaged, but others still play." He pressed a button on one of the terminals and a small screen came to life. Images appeared. Children playing in parks, ships launching from glowing platforms, people smiling beneath bright skies. The sound of laughter filled the chamber. Alira felt tears touch her eyes. They were so full of hope. "Yes," Rin said. "They dreamed big. They built wonders, but they forgot kindness, and when that was lost, everything else followed." The two stood watching the screen until the images faded. When they returned to the surface, the sky was turning orange. The sun dipped behind the hills, painting the city ruins in gold. Rin looked toward the horizon. "Tomorrow we will try the signal again. Maybe it will reach your people." Alira nodded, but her heart felt heavy. "And when they come? Then you will go home," he said quietly. She looked at him, searching his face. "And you?" "I will stay," he replied. "This is my home. My duty is here." The thought of leaving made her chest tighten, but she said nothing. That night the two sat outside near the stream. The stars shone brighter than usual. Alira pointed at a cluster near the east. "That is Velis Prime," she said. "My world. My father always said those stars watch over us." Rin followed her gaze. "Then maybe they are watching you even now." For a long time they sat in quiet comfort, sharing warmth and stories. Rin told her about the last days of Earth, the great exodus, the silent skies, the moment humanity turned inward. Alira shared tales of the worlds she had seen, of crystal cities and floating gardens. She realized how easily they spoke now, as if they had known each other for years. The next morning came with clear skies. Rin powered the transmitter and connected it to the pod's antenna. Alira watched as the lights on the console brightened. "Ready?" he asked. She took a deep breath. "Ready." He pressed the activation key. A soft hum filled the air. The small screen showed waves of energy pulsing outward. "Signal is transmitting," Rin said. They waited, watching the data scroll. The signal repeated every 30 seconds, carrying her name, royal code, and coordinates. "Will they hear it?" she asked softly. "If anyone is listening beyond the stars, yes," he said. After a moment, the signal faded into the quiet air. Rin powered it down and checked the readings. It worked. "Now we wait." Alira smiled faintly. "I never thought I would say this, but waiting here does not feel so hard." Rin returned her smile. "Earth has that effect." Days passed again. They repaired the garden near the shelter, planting vegetables and flowers from old seed packets. Alira helped Rin clean the machines in the vault, and he taught her how to read the ancient Earth script. They worked side by side in calm rhythm. Sometimes, when the wind carried the sound of the forest, Alira would stop and listen. The world felt alive, as if whispering old stories through the leaves. One afternoon, while exploring a broken tower, she found something remarkable. Inside a metal chest covered in dust was a small book, its pages yellowed but intact. She opened it carefully. The handwriting was neat and flowing, "Rin," she called, "look what I found." He came closer and took the book gently. "A diary," he said with surprise. He opened to the first page and read aloud. "To the future dreamers. May you remember where you came from." They looked at each other in quiet awe. Alira said softly, "Whoever wrote this wanted to be remembered." "Yes," Rin said. "And now they will be." That evening they read more from the diary together. It told stories of families, inventions, and the hopes of those who believed Earth would one day rise again. Each word carried warmth, a voice from the past reaching across time. Later, as they closed the book, Alira looked at Rin. "Your people were amazing. They built worlds, they dreamed of peace. Even if they failed, their spirit remains." Rin looked toward the stars. "Then maybe there is still a chance for us. Maybe their dreams are not gone, only waiting." As night deepened, Alira returned to her small bed near the window. She could not sleep. Her thoughts circled the same question. What would happen when her people came? Would they welcome Rin or see him as a forgotten relic of the past? The thought troubled her, but she also felt something else growing inside her. A deep respect and warmth for the man who had saved her, and for the world that had once belonged to his kind. Outside, Rin sat by the stream again, gazing at the stars. His old radio crackled softly beside him, searching for signals in the endless quiet. He did not expect a reply. Yet tonight, as he adjusted the dials, a faint sound came through, a repeating pattern, steady and distant. He froze, listening closely. It was the same frequency they had used. Someone had heard them. Rin looked toward the shelter where Alira slept. A small smile touched his lips. The forgotten world was no longer silent. The morning sun rose over the quiet valley, painting the forest in gold and green. Princess Alira stepped out of the shelter, stretching her arms toward the warm light. She felt stronger now, her wounds healed and her heart lighter than it had been since the crash. Rin was already outside, examining the pod and the old Earth transmitters. He looked up as she approached and gave a small smile. "The signal worked," he said, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. "Someone heard it." Alira's eyes widened. "They did?" "Yes," Rin said. "A fleet or a single ship, I cannot tell yet. The signal was distant but clear. They are coming." Alira felt a mix of relief and nervousness. Her people might find her and she would finally return home. Yet leaving Earth, leaving Rin in this quiet world, felt suddenly harder than she had expected. Rin seemed to sense her thoughts. "You have done well here," he said gently. "You survived, you learned, and you reminded the stars that humans still matter. Now it is time for others to remember you." Alira nodded quietly. They spent the day preparing the shelter and the pod. Rin repaired what he could, ensuring the transmitter would continue to send signals. Alira helped organize food and water, and together they mapped the surrounding area in case newcomers needed guidance. As the sun dipped below the hills, they sat near the stream. The forest was quiet, filled only with the gentle rustle of leaves. "Do you think they will be friendly?" Alira asked. Rin considered this. "I hope so. Your people will come quickly, but they might be cautious. They will see a human here and may not understand why Earth still exists." Alira swallowed. "I hope they trust you." "They will," Rin said with quiet certainty. "You are their princess. Your word will carry weight." Night fell and stars blanketed the sky. Alira stared at the familiar constellations. Thinking of Velis Prime, she missed her home, her family, but also felt a growing respect for Rin and the hidden beauty of this world. Hours passed, and just before midnight, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. Alira squinted. "Rin, look, lights!" Rin followed her gaze. "They are coming." The glow grew brighter, and soon the shapes of sleek ships emerged from the distance. The ships were elegant, polished, and carried the royal colors of Velis Prime. Alira's heart leapt. She could see them clearly now. Her fleet had found her. "They are landing," Rin said calmly. The ships touched the ground smoothly, and small ramps extended toward the valley. Soldiers in crisp uniforms stepped out, scanning the area. Alira ran toward them, calling her name. Her second-in-command, Commander Dalen, rushed forward, his face breaking into a smile. "Your Highness," he cried. "We thought we lost you." Alira embraced him quickly, tears in her eyes. "I am safe," she said. "But wait, there is someone you must meet." She turned toward Rin. He stepped forward, bowing slightly. "This is Rin," Alira said. "He saved me when my ship crashed. He helped me survive on this planet. The soldiers paused, looking at Rin with curiosity. Some whispered among themselves. He was human, unlike anyone they had expected to find. His clothes were simple, his hands worn from work, yet his presence carried calm confidence. Commander Dalen stepped forward carefully. "You saved the princess?" Rin nodded quietly. "Yes, she needed help." "I gave what I could." Alira smiled softly. "He did more than that. He showed me this world, taught me, and helped me stay alive. I trust him, and so should you." The soldiers looked at each other, then back at Rin. Slowly, they lowered their weapons and nodded. One of the fleet officers stepped forward. "Princess, this human? He is remarkable. He has knowledge and skills lost for centuries," Alira agreed. "Yes, he comes from Earth, the planet thought to be empty. But it is not. Humanity survives here quietly in small numbers." Rin's eyes reflected surprise and quiet pride. "Some of us stayed behind," he said. "We remember the old ways, the old knowledge." The officers exchanged looks. They had read about Earth, about humans, but the stories were old. Seeing Rin alive and capable made history feel real. Alira led them through the forest to the ruins and the shelter. She explained how Rin had repaired the transmitter, guided her through the valley, and helped her survive. The soldiers and officers listened in awe. Some knelt to examine the old machines. Others walked among the ruins, touching walls and towers, trying to imagine the life that had once filled the city. "We thought this world was silent," said one officer quietly. "But it speaks now." Alira nodded. "It does. Rin helped me hear it again." As the night passed, the fleet set up temporary communications equipment near the shelter. Rin assisted with the repairs, connecting old Earth technology to their new systems. Alira watched him work. His hands moved with quiet precision, and his knowledge of the ancient devices impressed even the most skilled technicians of Velis Prime. By morning, a stable signal was established. Rin showed the fleet how to access old data from the vault. Images of Earth's past, music, and recordings of human voices filled the screens. Soldiers and officers leaned closer, fascinated. "This is history," one officer whispered. "Not a story, but real life." Alira smiled. "And it has been waiting for someone to see it again." That afternoon, the fleet commanders gathered. Alira spoke, explaining Earth's hidden existence and Rin's role in saving her. Her words carried authority and truth. "Rin is not just a survivor," she said. "He is proof that humanity's spirit endures. We must respect this world and the knowledge preserved here. It is part of our history and perhaps the key to our future." The commanders nodded, their expressions thoughtful. Some had expected empty ruins, a planet lost to time. Instead, they found life, intelligence, and hope. After the meeting, Alira and Rin walked together through the forest. The wind carried the scent of flowers and sunlight sparkled on the stream. "You are safe now," she said softly. Rin smiled faintly. "I have been safe here for a long time, but now I see there is more to do." "What do you mean?" she asked. "We can share Earth with the stars again," he said. "Not as a conquered world, but as a place of knowledge, of memory, of hope. Humanity's story does not end here." Alira nodded. "I will help. And so will my people." As they returned to the shelter, a sound carried across the valley, a soft hum in the distance. Alira turned alarmed. Rin squinted toward the horizon. "Not everyone comes for help," he said. "Something is approaching." From the sky, a small ship descended, moving faster than the fleet. It was not part of her people. Alira's heart sank. The ship landed carefully in a nearby clearing. A hatch opened and a figure stepped out. He was tall, sleekly dressed, and carried an air of authority. Alira recognized the insignia faintly. It was a ship of the Orion Belt, the very region that had threatened her before. The newcomer approached cautiously. "Princess Alira," he said politely, "I heard your signal. I come in peace. I am here to help." Alira relaxed slightly but stayed alert. "You are welcome," she said. "We need to ensure no harm comes to this world." The man nodded. "That is my intention. The Belt wishes to avoid unnecessary conflict. I am here to observe, learn, and assist if possible." Rin stepped forward. "This is my home," he said calmly. "I saved the princess. I have lived here for years. Any harm toward this place will not be tolerated." The newcomer met his gaze steadily but did not show hostility. "I mean no harm," he said. Alira watched the interaction carefully. Her heart filled with pride and admiration. Rin stood firm, not seeking praise, but defending the quiet world he loved. His courage was quiet but undeniable. As the day progressed, the fleet, the newcomer, and Rin worked together to strengthen the shelter, restore old systems, and explore the ruins. Each person marveled at what Earth had preserved. The knowledge, the technology, and the history of humans long thought lost amazed them all. Alira realized something important. Earth was not just a place to hide or survive. It was a reminder that humanity's spirit could endure any challenge, survive any silence, and still shine brightly when someone remembered. That night, the princess and Rin sat again by the stream watching the stars. The fleet camped nearby, their lights dimmed out of respect for the forest. Alira leaned on Rin's shoulder. "You changed everything," she said softly. He shook his head. "We changed it together," he said. "You gave hope, I gave guidance, and now others will remember." Above them, the stars sparkled brighter than ever, as if celebrating the return of life, hope, and humanity. The lost world of Earth had awakened, and the first whispers of its story were ready to spread across the galaxies. Alira closed her eyes and whispered to the stars, "We will not be forgotten." Rin's hand rested lightly on hers. Together they watched the night, knowing the next day would bring new challenges, new faces, and the promise of a future where humanity's light would shine once again. The valley was alive with quiet energy. Dawn broke, casting soft light across the trees and ruins. Princess Alira stepped out of the shelter, feeling the cool morning air on her face. The fleet of Velis Prime had fully landed, their ships aligned neatly near the forest edge. Rin stood nearby, checking the old Earth devices one last time before they were fully integrated into the fleet systems. Alira looked around at the scene. Soldiers and officers moved carefully among the ruins, examining ancient machines and old buildings. Even the newcomer from the Orion Belt was present, cautiously helping with repairs. Everyone had a sense of purpose, a shared understanding that something extraordinary was happening. "Everything is ready," Rin said, coming beside her. "The old transmitters are integrated, the shelters are safe, and the data cores are functioning. If anyone arrives from beyond, they will find a prepared world." Alira nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "Thank you, Rin. You did all of this. You saved me, and now you are helping all of us remember." He shook his head gently. "We did it together. You guided the fleet, gave hope, and reminded everyone that humans still matter." The first signals of approaching ships came faintly at first, visible only as distant glimmers in the sky. Alira's heart leapt as the lights grew closer. She recognized the shapes immediately, cruisers from Velis Prime and nearby allied systems. The fleet had come fully, ready to recover their lost princess and witness the hidden planet. "Everyone will see it soon," she whispered, almost to herself. Rin stood tall beside her. "And they will see what humanity can endure," he said. The ships descended carefully, landing in clearings near the valley. Ramps extended and delegations of leaders, officers, and scientists stepped down. Their expressions ranged from awe to disbelief. They had read about Earth, but this world, thriving quietly, far from the reach of the stars, exceeded all expectations. Commander Dalen led a group toward Alira. "Your Highness," he said, his voice steady despite his excitement, "the fleet has arrived. They are eager to see you." Alira smiled and nodded. "Then let them see." She turned toward Rin. "Stay close," she said softly. "They need to meet you too." Rin's gaze met hers. He nodded. "I am ready." The delegations approached slowly. As they came closer, murmurs spread among the groups. The human presence here was real, tangible, and yet unexpected. Rin stood in front, calm, but every eye in the crowd was on him. Alira stepped forward. "This is Rin," she said loudly so everyone could hear. "He saved me when my ship was destroyed. He has lived here on Earth, preserving knowledge and history. He is one of the last humans, and his knowledge is invaluable." The crowd grew quiet, staring at Rin with awe and curiosity. Officers whispered to one another, trying to comprehend the significance. Scholars in the group moved closer to examine the devices and terminals he had set up. Rin spoke simply, without hesitation. "This planet is alive, and humanity's story is not over. I have maintained what I could, and now we can share it with the stars. The knowledge of our people, their history, and their dreams can inspire new generations." A scientist stepped forward, eyes wide. "We thought Earth was lost, but this is proof. Proof that humanity endured. Alira felt a swell of pride in her chest. Yes, she said. Not only proof but hope. We can rebuild, learn from the past and honor those who came before. Rin gestured toward the ruins. All of this and more is here. Machines, records, and history. It has waited for someone to remember, and now we are here together. As the sun climbed higher, the fleet began to organize. Engineers, scholars, and officers worked alongside Rin, restoring old systems, analyzing data, and learning from the machines. Alira walked among them, explaining the story of Earth, its survival, and Rin's role. The Orion Belt representative observed quietly, impressed by Rin's knowledge and calm demeanor. This human, he said to a nearby officer, represents more than survival. He represents the endurance of a people who once were thought lost. Yes, the officer replied, and he has guided the princess. Together they remind us that no matter how far humanity drifts, hope endures. Alira approached Rin as he helped a group of young technicians repair an old power console. Look at them, she said softly. They are learning from you. He glanced up and smiled faintly. And they will carry it forward. The story of Earth will continue. As the day progressed, new visitors arrived from neighboring star systems. They came to see the planet that had been forgotten, to witness the survival of humanity in its quietest form. Alira greeted them, explaining the history and introducing Rin as both protector and teacher. The visitors were amazed. They walked through the ruins, touched the walls, and examined the machines. They saw the ingenuity of humans long gone from the stars, preserved in the careful work Rin had maintained. Everything here is remarkable, said a visiting scholar. These records, these machines, they could teach the entire galaxy, Rin nodded. That is the hope. Knowledge is not meant to be lost. Even if one world forgets, another can learn. Alira watched the crowd, proud of what they were witnessing. She realized that this was more than a reunion or a rescue. This was the rebirth of humanity's story, a reminder that people could endure even the longest silence. As evening approached, the sky painted itself in gold and red. Alira and Rin walked together through the valley. The fleet had set up temporary shelters, but the forest remained untouched. Nature and history coexisted peacefully. They are finally here, Alira said softly. Yes, Rin replied, and now Earth's story will be remembered by more than just me. She stopped and looked at him. I cannot imagine this without you, she said. He smiled gently. I only did what I could. You guided the future by being brave and believing. The stars began to appear one by one. They shone like tiny beacons, silent witnesses to the events unfolding below. Alira thought of her home world, of her father, and of the fleets now above Earth. The princess realized something important. Earth was not just a planet. It was proof that humanity could endure, adapt, and rise again even after centuries of silence. Rin had preserved that proof, and now it would inspire generations across the stars. The next morning, Alira addressed the assembled leaders, scholars, and fleet officers. She spoke with clear authority, her voice carrying through the valley. Today we witness something remarkable, she said. A world thought lost has survived. Knowledge thought forgotten has endured. Humanity has not vanished, and our story continues. She gestured to Rin. This human who lived quietly in the shadow of history reminds us all of what is possible. Courage, patience, and hope can preserve a future even when all seems lost. The crowd listened in respectful silence, absorbing the weight of her words. Earth will not remain hidden, she continued. Its knowledge will guide us, its history will teach us, and its people, even those few who remain, will inspire us to reach farther and dream bigger. We honor those who came before and those who remain today. Rin watched, quiet but proud. The world that had once been forgotten was now alive with purpose. Scholars began recording every detail. Engineers restored old machines, and fleets from distant systems prepared to integrate Earth's knowledge into the wider galaxy. Alira felt hope fill her heart. This was the moment humanity needed, proof that survival, knowledge, and hope could endure even the longest silence. That night, the princess and Rin sat once more by the stream. The valley was peaceful, filled with faint lights from the fleet's shelters. Stars shone above like endless witnesses to the triumph below. You did it, Alira said softly. No, Rin replied. We did it together. You brought hope and I helped preserve it. Now it spreads, Alira smiled, feeling the truth of his words. The story of humanity once thought lost had returned, and it would continue, not just on Earth but across the stars. The two looked up at the sky, knowing that the galaxies beyond were now listening. The forgotten world had awakened and humanity's light would shine once more. Above them, the stars seemed to sparkle brighter, reflecting the promise of new beginnings. And in that quiet valley, Princess Alira and Rin stood side by side watching history unfold, proud of the endurance and courage that had brought them to this moment. Humanity had survived. Humanity had returned, and the stars would remember,